I'm wearing my Arctic Monkeys t-shirt because today is the imaginary national holiday that is Alex Turner's birthday, so this is how I'm celebrating. Okay, even though we've got like literally one of the busiest days. Teehee. Let's go, let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. The year is over. All the books that I read in 2022. I'm kind of dreading it because I only read 28 books, but I still feel like this is going to be a lot. Make sure you're sitting comfortably and everything like that. That sounds like I'm gonna start as a children's story. And we shall begin. I had a very like average reading year in terms of like my enjoyment of the books I was reading. I did actually start reading like a lot more than I had in previous years, because in the year before 2021 I only read 7 books. Heartbreaking. My reading slump days are over, and I started reading like properly I'd say around July of this year. So I read about 10 books in the first half of the year, and then I read about 18 in the latter half. So things have definitely picked up, and I'm hoping to read more than that this coming year. I don't guarantee anything, of course, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like I don't know what's going to happen with my reading mood, and I don't know what's going to happen in my life in terms of how busy I'll be with things, but I'm really hoping to read, like, I've set my goal at 23, because I've just matched it to the year, because like last year I set at 22. I'm not putting any pressure on myself, but I would like to read like at least 30 books. But you didn't hear it from me, okay? Without further ado, let's just go on to the video. So I started off the year on a rather positive and negative note, because I actually managed to finish the Shadow and Bone series by Leigh Bardugo. This is the Grisha verse trilogy. I don't really know what this is called, but basically it's sort of Shadow Bone, then Siege and Storm, and then Ronin Rising. So positive note, started the final book in a series and ended a series, but I also gave this 2 stars. You know, I just was bored by it basically, and considering this is the final book in the series, you'd think that there'd be some action, but like the action was kind of uninteresting / not there. So my favourite character in this series is Nikolai, and I thought this would be the book of him, but we got about 5 seconds of him before he just disappeared for like the entire time. So 2 stars to this book. Next up, I read what I thought was going to be one of my favourite ever books of the year, but I actually did have a couple of 5 stars after this one. But I read Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan. So this is for all the Sally Rooney girlies. This is for all the girls in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and struggling. We follow a protagonist who's doing the same, and her various like relationships she has with a couple of different people. Yeah, 4.5 stars this book. A lot of people complain about this book because they're trying to compare it to Sally Rooney's books like directly. It's not like that. You need to like it's not just a carbon copy of that. Yes, it's perfect for the same kind of like demographic of Sally Rooney's readers, but it's not a Sally Rooney book. I just thought the ending was like a little bit unsatisfying / why does that word sound so weird? / rushed. Next book I read in 2022 was The White Book by Han Kang. So this is a Korean kind of book of prose all about the colour white. It basically has tons of little like excerpt kind of things about different white things like clouds, or just broke the book, white birds, sugar cubes, sand, butterflies, like everything like that. And it links in this kind of family tragedy, as well as kind of just analysing a deeper look into these like different objects or feelings or whatever. And I ended up giving it 3 stars. Liked it, didn't love it, and I am unhauling it. It's currently up on my Depop if anyone's interested. I read The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This is a very British rom-com about 2 people who share a flat but actually never meet, because one works day shifts and one works night shifts. So their jobs like mean that they end up not overlapping their time spent in the flat. Does that make any sense? It's a very good book, very solid, entertaining. Nothing I really faulted on. I just didn't completely love it, so I ended up giving that 3 stars as well. I've actually passed it on to my friend. I didn't feel any need to like hold on to the book. Good, solid book. Then next up I read Conversation with Friends by Sally Rooney. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 stars. This was my first ever Sally Rooney book. I wanted to read all her books in publication order, so far I've read 2 of the 3 of them. I've done individual reading vlogs for each of these books, which I'll have linked up in the cards and down below. I'm also going to link all my monthly wrap-ups from throughout the year, so you guys can see my opinion on these books in like a little bit more depth. I like this book. I think Sally Rooney is a brilliant writer, and I think that she explored these topics really well. I just feel like if you want my like actual like coherent thoughts on this book, then you can definitely check out the vlog, because right now I'm struggling. We follow 2 girls also in their 20s, and it's about them kind of getting caught up with this married couple. I really do feel like these characters are real and everything like that, but I just didn't love it. I didn't love the topics that were discussed. I didn't love the way they were dealt with, but I also do agree that that is just like a facet of human life, that these things do happen, and I think that she portrayed it in a really realistic, accurate way. I just like don't personally connect with it or relate to it or anything like that. But yeah, good book, just not my fave. Next up, I read Fortuna Swan. I read it on my phone and I read it while I was living at university. I'd kind of read this at the bus stop and then on the bus. Basically a fantasy romance, and it was to do with fae, so I was really intrigued by it because they're basically my favourite, like, I was gonna say mythological, but like fantastical creature. But I just was bored by it basically, and so I ended up DNFing it at page 372. I got so close to the end, but I was just like, if I'm bored, like, there's no chance I'm going to continue the series. You know, I could be reading better stuff. So I did DNF that one, but I'm glad to have like given it a go because I was hearing like a lot of really good things about it. It just was not a book that worked for me personally. Then I read a book or a story from The Complete Bramley Hedge, and I read Spring Story because it was spring at this point of the year. This was wonderful. I gave it a 4 stars. A really sweet picture book about a community of mice. Wholesome. So I really enjoyed that book. Then I read my first kind of like official poetry book of the year, and I read Book of Longing by Leonard Cohen. It's my first Leonard Cohen book. I really like his lyrics and his music, so I thought I would really appreciate his poetry. I did like this, but like every single poetry collection that I've read, I found that I connected with some poems and I didn't connect with others. I gave it a 3 stars because I thought that was an accurate representation of kind of like the average of like the poems that I love and the poems that I just didn't like so much. But I would say that if you're interested in his music, it's definitely worth checking out his poetry because it is essentially just like lyrics, and you do get like a little view into his mind, and some of these were really beautiful. Next book, I'm low-key terrified to talk to you about this one because I read Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, which I gave a 1.5 stars. This is a workplace romance. It's hate to love. It's fake dating. It's about this girl who really wants a date to her sister's wedding because she hasn't seen her family since she was in this like long-term relationship with this guy who her family loved and everything like that, and then they broke up, and she's kind of told her family that like she's thriving, she's living her best life with this boyfriend who doesn't exist because she's trying to like prove that she's moved on. She turns up to the wedding with this guy, Aaron Blackford, who she works with, and then they fake date and, you know, eventually fall in love, everything like that. This is a massive book. It's like 550 pages. I liked the beginning of it. I found it really entertaining. It was a really quick, easy read despite the length of it. But just towards the end, things got so incredibly problematic that I just kind of understand for the life of me if I read the same book that other people read, because it is like, things were literally disgusting. I was just like actually in shock over it. One half of me like completely respects people for enjoying something that I didn't personally enjoy, because obviously like people's tastes are different and there's like a million things that play into that, but like I think there are actually issues with this book, a bit of a problem that people are promoting it the way they are. These are all green tabs towards the end because the thing just like outraged me. I didn't want to go in on this book, but I really am. A lot of it was about how possessive and gross Blackford is. I was going to do like a full review of this book, but all the issues that I had with it were actually kind of explained in a Clockwork Reader's like little video vlog she did of this book. So I'll definitely link that video down below and like the timestamps on when she talks about this book, because everything that she found was wrong with it and what I found was wrong with it. The 1.5 stars of the enjoyment I had at the beginning of the book and how easy it was to read and everything like that, but like everything else is just such a no, and I do regret reading this book. It's awful. I'm so sorry if you like this book, but I just personally like this was such a no, and I'm honestly like envious of you for having enjoyed it. I wish I too could have had that experience. Right, next we have a couple that I don't own physically. Destroy Me by Tara Murphy. This is the little novella that goes in between the first and second books in the Shaft Me series. I gave this 3 stars. From Warner's perspective, who's one of the characters, who's basically the like the villain in the first book, you understand and you kind of empathize with him a little bit more, or at least sympathize, and I thought it was a really valuable book in the series. I'd say don't skip the novellas if you are reading the series. It was good, but it's only a novella, so like I couldn't possibly kind of give it more than 3 stars, but you know, 3 stars. Next up, I read a book that I've actually never talked about on my channel, but I really enjoyed, and it's called Paradise Rot by Jenny Havel. She is a singer songwriter, and you can tell that she's a lyricist because her writing was beautiful. It's about a girl who does like a year abroad. It's just like, it's so weird. It's literally a fever dream. I read this when I was in Australia, and I downloaded the ebook because I spent the entire day in bed absolutely dying from period cramps. I'm certain I had a temperature, so that kind of like really suited the mood of this book because it's just honestly crazy, but the writing is so beautiful. I can't even begin to explain it. Definitely gonna link like a Goodreads page or something down below. It was fantastic, but it's also just so strange. This is about this relationship she has with this girl. It's also about this man who kind of comes into her life and like the place they live, and it's all very like vivid and electric, and it kind of feels like the way that I imagine, like I've never read Alice in Wonderland, but it's the way I imagine that book to be, because it's just so, it feels like a drug trip. So yeah, if you're looking for a book like that. Definitely recommend that. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's just so strange. I didn't like fully love it, but I think it's a fantastic piece of work. I'm intrigued to read something else that she's written as well. Right, next up we get to the bit where I started reading like properly, fully. Why did I just yank my hair? I read Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So this is a book that I buddy read. I gave this book 3.5 stars, but realistically it's probably more of a 3. I just found that I wasn't completely engaged with it. It was very much like a plot driven book, but you follow kind of these 2 characters as they're trying to discover what happened to this girl who went missing. It is like a bit of a noir. It's very much like a mystery book. It's not particularly thrilling. I just didn't, you know, but I did really love the atmosphere. It's set in Mexico in the 1970s, and you do definitely get the kind of that vibe from it, and I really enjoyed buddy reading it. Next up, I read a YA book called Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, and like a bunch of other authors also helped her out on this one. So Cassandra Clare writes the Shadowhunter series, absolutely epic, like YA series. This is like a short story collection. I do believe it's probably going to be the last kind of Shadowhunter book that I read in my lifetime, other than like rereads, whatever. I'm kind of considering reading the Lost Hours trilogy, but if I don't touch that, then this will be the last one. Some of the stories are really lovely and very funny, and then some of them I just found boring slash like too juvenile for me, which I think is like a problem I'm having with her book series. It's just aimed at a different age group from my own. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. In August I went to Paris on Moveable Feast because I thought this would be the perfect book to read while I was over there. It's about Hemingway's time he spent in Paris. It is very much like autobiographical. It was a memoir. I gave this 4 stars. I think it's obviously incredibly well written. I really did like his writing style. I was a bit concerned about that. It's very dry. You either like love it or you kind of hate it. I did end up really loving it. Perfect for that environment. I wonder how I would have felt about it had I not read it in the city, because there were some moments where like I was in Gare du Nord and he was like, ah, Gare du Nord, and I was like, life is like full circle right now. Another poetry collection, On Sun Swallowing by Dakota Warren, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. Loved it. One of my favorite books of the year, all about life and love and death and pain and beauty and everything, and it just feels so kind of luxurious. You really want to like, chomp into it. The poems pair so well with the layout and the photography and everything included in this book. I literally read this like the first day I got it, and I'd never revisited it since that first original read, so this might be one that I'll be rereading this year slash like just dipping into here and there. Next I read another ebook, and that was The Lost Sisters by Holly Black. This is a novella. It's in the Cruel Prince series. You have the Cruel Prince, the Wicked King, and the Queen of Nothing, and then in between the Cruel Prince and the Wicked King I believe this novella goes. I read it after I read the 3 books, and I think it would have been more effective had I read it in between, like where it's meant to go. I gave this book 2.5 stars. So then the first book, we're following Jude, but she has a twin sister called Taryn who just treats her so badly. This novella is told from Taryn's point of view, and it's her kind of trying to justify her actions throughout the first book, and I didn't buy it, Taryn. I also think this was really poorly edited, which is a shame because Holly Black would have the best of everything. So I just don't understand how like so many things kind of slip through the cracks, and there were bits that just didn't match up with the original book. I don't know. I thought it was a bit of a flop, really. I was gonna say I do think it's worth reading, but I'm not sure. If you really love the series, wanted more content from it, then you could definitely read this book, but if not, then I'm not sure I would bother. I also did manage to find it for free, so that definitely played into why like I don't feel terrible about the fact that I bothered reading it. Next book I read was The White Album by Joan Didion. This is my first Didion, and this is a non-fiction account of life in California in the 1960s. Am I totally lying about that? No. Yeah, I gave this 3 stars. Like literally everything else I've mentioned, I just connected with more essays than I did others. It's not me just being like, oh, okay, I felt good and bad about this book, so I'm gonna give it a 3 star. I actually like went through and I rated each essay, and the average rating was a 3 stars. Next I read another Bramley Hedge book. I read Autumn Story, and I did prefer this one slightly more over Spring Story, but I gave them the same rating. Like they must have felt like very similar. This is just super cozy. I think I just loved the autumn like illustrations and things. Perfect little stories to be reading like the beginning or slash like in the middle of each season. I believe I've read all 4 seasons now. I could be wrong. So far winter is my favorite, if you're curious. Then I read a book that is beloved by many, and that is A Secret History by Donna Tartt. I gave this book 4 stars. It was kind of like signing myself up more for the dark academia like aesthetic. When it turned into this kind of murder mystery or like a police investigation, I found myself like kind of less engaged. And also because you're following these characters who like have committed this murder and you know they've committed this murder, I was kind of disappointed with the fact that like there wasn't actually a lot to do with psychologically how they were coping with having done this horrible thing. Just like the cold hard facts of the case, that's what it kind of became. But I did love the beginning of it, and I'm glad to have read it because this has been on my shelves since 2019, 2018, don't remember. I should remember. 2019 because I got given it for my 21st birthday, and I've also had it on my TBR for like 10 years or something. Next I read the first and I believe only Christian non-fiction I read this year, which was a little bit disappointing, but you know, we can aim for better in 2023. Without Rival by Lisa Bevere. So the title of this is actually Without Rival, Embrace Your Identity and Purpose in an Age of Confusion and Comparison. I gave this 3.5 stars. It started off really well and then it kind of changed direction halfway through, which was not accurate to what the blurb or the title kind of leads you to assume. If I was another reader, I'd be like, what is this? Because like I said, it starts as one thing and just turns into something completely different. But actually the thing it turned into was something that I found was really valuable from that moment in my life. I didn't mind that, but I do think that I can't give this absolutely like fantastic rating because it didn't kind of achieve what it set out to. Then I read another poetry collection. I read Homebody by Rupi Kaur, which is the most recent poetry collection. I gave this book 2 stars. Just no, didn't love it. I preferred both of her previous works and this one was, yeah, I'll read my review, that would make things easier. I enjoyed 22 of the 174 pages of this collection. Of those 22, I appreciated most of the concepts behind the poems more than the words within them. The illustrations are more engaging than the poems themselves. Overall, not great. Despite my looking for the best in each one, I am disappointed. That's my mood about that. If you're a big Rupi Kaur fan, then yeah, maybe go ahead. But if not, then I read Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is her most recent release. I liked this, but I didn't like it as much as her previous ones. And yes, it's about a tennis player, Carrie Soto. It's about her return after going into retirement briefly, but she kind of wants to come back into the scene to reclaim her title. I thought it was a really good book. From Taylor Jenkins Reid, I was expecting more, and I think that's the problem I had with this book. I think it's unfair on TJR to be like expecting more and more and more from her, because I think that it's okay for her to, you know, have a book that's absolutely hit and then one that might miss like a little bit. Her writing has definitely like improved over her books. It was not personally like a favourite for me. Next up I read and then DNF The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I got about 150 pages into this book. It's a time travelling fantasy set in the 1920s, mostly set in the 1920s because like I said, there's time travel. Yeah, I was bored by it and I just had no like investment in it and no want to continue with the series after this one. I didn't like really dislike it, but I just didn't feel at all connected to it and I didn't think it was worth my time. It's Unravel Me by Tara Murphy. I gave this book a 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it, but I found that some of our main characters became a little bit insufferable. This one does have the award for the biggest like craziest plot twist I've ever experienced. I was reading it late at night and I was like I actually like I couldn't process it because I was like, it's absolutely wild. I do recommend it if you're looking for something like that. I expect this series to like improve as it goes along, and I gave this one 3.5, which I'm not mad about because it's only in a long series. So next I read Normal People by Sally Rooney. It's a 5-star book. Favourite Sally Rooney so far, although I've only read the 2. I just really connected with this book, a relationship that I've experienced that was very similar, and Sally Rooney managed to write that down in a way that is just kind of like a little bit scary. I'm not going to go into detail obviously because this is extremely personal, but like if you guys knew, you would be kind of shocked as well because like they're a little bit too close to comfort. But yeah, great book. Put house feeling into words. Is kind of magical and very much like a special read for me. So I didn't necessarily like really enjoy it. Like it lives within my heart a little bit. We're down to the last 3. So next book I read was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars after loving the original Akatar trilogy and giving every single book 5 stars. It felt quite average for me. I didn't love all the smut in it. I didn't love the character development, like how that arc went or how Sarah J Maas wrote that. I didn't love the plot. The characters had changed from the previous series. I just like things were just didn't work for me. My biggest disappointment of the year. But then next I read a 5-star book, and that was The Idiot by Elif Batuman. This follows a girl who's at Harvard and her kind of unrequited love for this boy called Ivan, who's 100% just leading her on. It's very much about linguistics and education, travel and life in your early 20s. I know, wow, she's the most predictable person in the world, but this was just beautiful and amazing and was the same kind of 5-star as Normal People, but so incredibly different because this one was one that I actually really did enjoy and really made me feel happy and positive about life, which is absolutely a wonderful thing to be feeling. And then lastly, Throwing a Glass with Sarah J Maas, the first book in an 8-part fantasy series. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was a really great introduction to the series and I'm excited to read more. So that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, the 28 books that I read in 2022. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm literally exhausted. I should have got a glass of water. I was thinking before I started filming this video I was going to do that, but then, you know, also my brother's just got in the shower, so that's what that noise is. Like I said, if you want to hear any extra thoughts, I have got quite a few wrap-ups that I filmed throughout 2022 that I will link down below. It was overall like a positive reading year in terms of like picking up the volume of books I've been reading, and I do think that throughout the year I've managed to kind of navigate my way through and find more of what my taste actually is. I definitely love the kind of coming of age, early 20s, messy girls doing messy things. That's kind of where my heart's at. My word for 2023, it just feels right, and that's peace. So everything I do is I'm going to be seeking peace within it. That involves reading books that are going to positively impact my life, and I'm excited to kind of explore that a little bit more in non-fiction, a little bit more of getting back to what I truly love, basically fantasy. I'm trying to rediscover my love, and also just like the good stuff, you know, feels good for you, basically. That's what I'm excited to find, because that's what I really found within the books that I loved this year. They either were like part of my soul, like Normal People or Exciting Times or Unsung Swallowing, or they were something that just brought me like a beautiful amount of joy, allowed me to see the beauty in life, and that was Unsung Swallowing as well, but also The Idiot by Lake Latimer. I'm really excited to go into 2023 and read some more books. I'm already reading 3 actually, and I've just bought another one on my Kindle today, and I have a massive book coming for you guys where you can see kind of the books I'm hoping to read across this year. So yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you want to stick around and see what I'm up to in 2023 in terms of reading, general things to do in my life, then you can subscribe down below if you haven't already. Please give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, so I know that you actually, you know, did enjoy it, because it was a lot. I spent a long time sitting here. My memory card is very full at this point. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a joy to rediscover my love for reading out of the booktube, and I'm excited to kind of further explore that in 2023. Stream fireside and the car, and just like, that is sort of me, you know? Okay.